This is Hannibal here from thehannibaltv.com, and I have the Merchant of Menace as the special guest here today, the purveyor of pain himself, exotic Adrian Street, all the way from Wales. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great, thank you, Devon. How are you doing yourself?
Oh, I'm doing very well, and it's a pleasure to talk to you because I've been a big fan of yours for a number of years. But we have a bit of a time restriction today, so I'm going to jump right into it. What was it like working with Andre the Giant?
What did you say? I didn't quite catch that. What did you say about Andre the Giant?
Sorry, what was it like working with Andre the Giant in England?
I never wrestled against him. He was a good friend of mine. Before he ever came to the States, he came over to Britain as Jean Fer. He wrestled in Britain as Jean Fer. And at that particular time when I knew him first, he was about he probably weighed about 275, and he was almost skinny at that weight. But in spite of all the exaggeration that the WWE did for him and what have you, I think he ended up being about 7'7" or something by the time they finished with him. But in actual fact, he was 6'11".
Did you ever go out with him to the bars or anything when you were friends with him?
Oh, I sure did. And I tell you what, he could put it away like nobody's business. I mean, he'd have like a 12-ounce beer in his hand, and he couldn't even see it. But I mean, he would drink. He would drink those like you'd sort of sip, like you'd sip like a little glass of water. He sure could put the beer away. That's for certain. It's strange in actual fact. Like talking about Andre the Giant. The first time I ever met him, he shook hands with me, and my hand and half my forearm disappeared into his hands. These are the biggest hands I've ever seen in my life. His shoes too. I think his shoes were 26, 12. I think they were size like 26, 27, something like that. The first time I ever met him was in St. Albans, just outside London. And I was sitting opposite him, talking to him. And right next to him was a dressing room door. And as I'm talking to him, I'm putting my wrestling boots on, and he took his shoes off and put them by the side of him. And just as he took his shoes off and put them down, Prince Kamali, a big guy used to wrestle like more or less like a Zulu, came in. Now, Prince Kamali was a big guy. He was about 6'5". He had big hands and big feet. But just as he walked into the dressing room, Andre the Giant put his shoes next to him on the floor. Prince Kamali looked down at the shoes and he stepped into them wearing his own street shoes. And he was kicking the shoes about like they were like two herring boxes or something on his feet.
Wow.
I mean, his hands and feet were absolutely enormous.
And who would have been challenged more by fans at the bars, him or you, by fans wanting to prove themselves? Because I guess you had the effeminate character, so maybe some of them thought they could beat you. And then Andre, everyone wants to try and prove themselves in a fight against the Giant.
Well, I never ever saw anybody. I was in a bar a few times with Andre, and most of the people regarded him with a jaw on their chest because he was a big man, a very big man. Myself, I didn't mind. I didn't mind people. The thing is, if anybody wanted to fight with me, they didn't have a wrestling match. They didn't have a boxing match. They had a fight, and I can fight. I like fighting with I like fighting with boxers. Notice I didn't say I like boxing with boxers because I'm not a good boxer. I boxed on a fairground booth, and I had as many as anywhere between 4 and 7 fights in one night.
Wow.
or I should say in one day, like the fairground was open all day. And like I say, I can't box. So, I mean, I used to get my face laced and everything like that back at that particular time because they've got rules and everything like that. Now, I don't like rules. I've always said, I've always said it doesn't matter how you win as long as you cheat. But anyway, like Napoleon Bonaparte said it best, never interrupt an enemy when they're making a mistake. And I like to see what they were going to do. And I'd actually feed them. I'd sort of put myself in a position where they thought they had the advantage. And like I say, never interrupt an enemy when they're making a mistake. Instead of having to fight somebody like for a position, for a submission, I like to see where they were going, and I'd actually put myself in harm's way, knowing that I had a great counter to whatever it is they were going to do. I had some great teachers. I mean, I learned the hard way, but I was a quick learner. I very, very rarely made the same mistake twice. And I like to pick my battleground. I mean, I'll fight a shark if I can pick my battleground, and that's on the beach.
Yeah. Now, you were actually, a lot of fans don't know this, but you were actually pretty feared by a lot of the wrestlers out there because you had the shooter reputation. Um, what do you think the most important thing is about being a shooter if you're going to be known as a shooter? What's other than being able to back it up? Like, what are some of the most important skills that you've learned over the years?
Submissions. The thing is, a guy doesn't. I've known good sort of amateur wrestlers that are good for pinfall, you know, are good at doing pinfalls and what have you. I can do those. I'd be the best of them. But the thing is, a guy doesn't admit being beaten until he's hurt. I've known good amateur wrestlers that are in sort of pinfalls and everything like that. That'll take a guy down and put his shoulders on the ground and say, "There you are, you're beaten." I'll get up and a guy will kick him in the crotch because he hasn't been hurt. I've got so many ways to hurt him that I have to invent new ways to scream.
Yeah, that may have even been a line in one of your songs. You have, for the fans that don't know, Adrian Street and the Pile Drivers and Adrian Street and the Boston Crabs are two of your bands that you've had over the years. Do you still do music?
So I still what?
Do you still perform music?
This is my first album,
Yeah.
and
My favorite song of yours is Breaking Bones, by the way.
oh, do you know something? That was the very first. That was the very first song that I ever recorded, and my music man. I mean, I can't write music. I know how it needs to go and everything like that, but my music man is Don Woods, and I met him through. I went to the studio where I was supposed to do the recording, and they said, like, there's this guy just started writing songs and whatever. His name is Don Woods. I'd never met him at the time. He's hilarious. I've actually had him as a manager for a while when he came out to visit me in the States. But he'd written a song called "I'm Only Happy When I'm Stoned." And that was like sort of something you'd imagine Dean Martin sort of singing and everything, like, you know, that sort of thing. But anyway, when I heard it, I started sort of changing the actual lyrics. And instead of like, "I'm only happy when I'm stoned," it was like, "I'm only happy breaking bones." And I changed the words to it, but the same sort of beat and what have you. And I met him and we sort of jazzed it up a little bit and everything like that. And that's how that one sort of came to be. And he'd also written a song called "A Mighty Big Girl." And that was like basically about a guy going to a dance. and sort of bumping into a big. I didn't even have to alter the words very much to that. Just sort of change it to sort of actually put some lyrics in there that sort of that sort of sounded more like wrestling. So that's how that one came to be. And then I told him I used to go to the ring actually to Breaking Bones in those days. But then I got a hold of him and I said to him, Don, I need something that's more beaty and sort of more to my character and everything like that. And that's between us we came up with Imagine What I Could Do to You. And it's a song I've always entered the ring to ever since. And in actual fact, one of my books is Imagine What I Could Do to You. I've written 7 books actually on my my autobiography. The first one was My Pink Gas Mask. That was like from the time I was born. My dad had me out of school actually. I never got on with my father at all. We didn't like each other. But he had me out of school working in a coal mine when I was 15. And that is one tough life, I'm telling you. Those coal miners were tough dudes. And I honed a lot of my fighting skills and everything like that, fighting with them. And also with local gypsies. I don't know if you're sort of like aware of the gypsy culture.
Oh yes, yeah.
They are tough. And we had a lot of gypsies living.
I actually fought a couple of them when I was in England working for Brian Dixon about 10 years ago.
Well, you actually fought
The,
some
the
gypsies.
gypsies in bars, yeah, because they're always causing
Uh, I,
mouthing off.
I don't have to convince you. I mean, they're tough people, right?
Yeah.
And there was plenty of those around. And I'd sort of fight with a lot of those people. They are tough. If you can beat a good gypsy, then you've got. I mean, you've already got yourself a fighting pedigree.
And they're a pain over in England, aren't they? They cause a lot of trouble over there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, they would be sort of. They traveled around and everything like that, and it'd only be a matter of time before they caused so much trouble that the police would be escorting them out of town, and they'd be gone. Maybe for months, maybe for years, maybe for a couple of years, but they'd be back. And like you say, they in this particular book, actually, I've described fights I've had with 2 gypsies in particular. One of them was a great, big, enormous gypsy that sort of picked on me when I was doing my training for the coal mine, and the other one was a small little gypsy. It was 10 times tougher than the big one. In actual fact, he hit me in the. He took a cheap shot. We kept getting broken up all the time because the thing is, he was really good with his fists. But like I say, I like to pick my own battleground, and my own battleground with somebody who's really good at standing on their feet and using their fists. I take them down on the ground. They were sort of like a fish out of water there, and that's my territory. I can do all kinds of stuff down there. But we kept getting broken up all the time from fairground workers and all the rest of it, and we must have been fighting for more than an hour. Like I said, I'd take him down. The fairground workers would sort of pull us back up again, pull us apart. I was back in his territory. So we were back and forth, back and forth. Finally, he sort of spun around and punched me in the nose. I tell you what, he just about spread my mouth and nose all over my face. We got broken up then and what have you, and he ran off. I never saw him again for years. I was sitting in the cinema one night, getting off, chatting. I was chatting the girl up and sort of getting sort of getting on fine with her. All of a sudden, I heard this. They got that sort of really funny accent,
Yes.
a really strange accent. In actual fact, there was a movie called Snatch with Brad
Brad
Pitt.
Pitt, yeah.
He had that accent off fantastic. I mean, you could hardly understand what they're talking about. I'm sitting in the cinema chatting up this girl, and all of a sudden I heard this awful voice. And he sort of says finally he says, take my seat, he said, I'm going for a piss. But in his own accent. I couldn't believe my luck. He went off to the bathroom, a small bathroom. He wasn't going to be able to run about and jump about or anything like that. I came in behind him. He was actually having a piss at the time. I dived in behind him. I got hold of the back of his head and smashed it right into the tiles. I kicked him and punched him and stomped on him that much. I tell you what, there was blood all over the white tile. There was even blood on the ceiling. I walked out of there. I couldn't go back and everything like that. I was just, I've been waiting for this. I've been waiting for that moment for years. And in a way, I wanted to tell him who it was. And I thought to myself, no, I'm going to leave it. If that guy is still alive, he's still wondering what the hell happened to him and who sort of did it. It was me. I tell you what, they say revenge is best when it's served cold. I don't know whether it was cold and like sort of tepid or bloody red hot, but I tell you what, it was good.
What did you think about Dynamite Kid, who just passed away? I imagine you knew Dynamite Kid pretty well.
Oh, I knew him very well. In actual fact, although he's British, I only ever met him once in a dressing room just before he went off to Canada. Unfortunately, he was so into steroids, it isn't true. And I guess that's what killed him in the end. But I remember saying to him, Tommy, why do you do so much in a contest? The thing is, you don't need to do the stuff that he was doing. And he was hurting himself every night. I said, you're just not going to last. You know what I mean? You can't. And he didn't. But I like Tommy, but I tell you what, you won't find very many people in the business that did like him. He had a very nasty sense. He was a nasty guy, actually. But I mean, I got on with him.
Probably because he didn't want to mess with you.
No, he didn't want to mess with me. And I don't know anybody that knew what they were doing. The funny thing is, everybody told me. The thing is, I'm only 5'7", probably shorter than that now because I'm 78 at the moment.
Wow, that's impressive.
I'm going to live until I'm 100 if it kills me. But anyway,
well, 78 in wrestlers' years has got to be around 130. If you consider the age that most wrestlers pass away these days.
I've had 15,000 professional matches. This is my last contest.
Okay, what year was that?
That was 2014.
Okay, so you've only been retired about 5 years or so.
Less than 5 years.
Yeah.
Just over 4 years.
Wow. And why do you think you never were in WWE or WCW? Is there any specific reason or politics?
Yes, they wanted me to work for them. And I would have, from a point of view of that they were paying some serious money. And I know it would have been, anyway, they called me up. They wanted me to work for them, but not as a wrestler. They wanted me to work for them as a manager.
Okay.
And they had two British wrestlers they were going to bring over in a tag team, and I was going to be managing them. I said, yeah, great. I don't mind. I mean, for the kind of money they were talking about, until they explained to me exactly what it was they wanted me to do. They said, right, we're going to bring these two guys over, and they're going to be wrestling as the British skinheads. And they wanted me to be an over-the-top neo-Nazi manager. Thanks, but no thanks. You can stick that, you know what I mean?
Who was the one that proposed that to you? Was there a specific
Vin-
person they had?
Vince,
Vince
and
himself.
I was dealing mostly with JJ Dillon, who was working with him at that particular time. He'd been my manager in the past when I was sort of wrestling a lot with Dusty Rhodes and people like that. When I was wrestling for what is his name, Eddie Graham down in Tampa.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, no way was I going to do that, never mind what. Because the thing is, if I put myself into any character, I know I'm good at doing it. I'm a good actor. But the thing is, I am not. I'm not a racist in any way, shape, or form. I love the fact that there's so many different races, interesting races, and everything like that in the world. Just the same as I mean, I love wild animals, exotic animals, and all the rest of it. I mean, I wouldn't say anything bad against a zebra. I wouldn't say anything bad against a warthog. I've eaten both of them actually, and they were delicious. But the thing is, if I had done that, I know I would be good at doing it. You get sort of immense publicity as well as good money if you work for the WWE. So I mean, what would I be known as now? What would I be remembered as if I'd worked for them as a neo-Nazi?
Right.
I'm proud. I'm proud of everything that I've done in the business. I'm proud of my legacy as what I've done, as what I developed, as what I sort of. I mean, the thing is, Vince must have been impressed with the actual image that I created because he's tried to copy him enough times.
At
And
least twice with
when he wanted Rico to do it, he actually sent Rico to me and said, go and talk to Adrian Street. He's the only one that's ever done this properly. I mean, he actually said that himself, but he never ever wanted me to do it.
right, watching you and then watching even Goldust, it's clear that you could do the gimmick a lot better than Goldust pulled it off. And it seems like Adrian Adonis was a bit of a copy of you too when they had him doing that gimmick.
Well, the thing is, this is the way I've always looked at it. Mimicking or copying my mannerisms, like pouting the lips and the limp hand wrist and all that kind of stuff, that's easy to do. I've never ever seen any of them trying to copy or mimic my wrestling skills because they can't do it.
Right. And I've heard numerous stories about you and Macho Man Savage. There's a lot of matches of you guys online. How did you get along with him in the ring, and how was he outside the ring? Because I've heard conflicting stories of how he was to work with.
Um, Most people didn't like working with him. I didn't care because the thing is, I could do whatever I wanted to do with him. The Macho Man was a great athlete, and he could look after himself in a fight. I know that because I won't mention any people that he beat up, but I've known quite a few people that he sort of really belted the hell out of. But the thing is, if he, like a lot of other American wrestlers, were hung for being wrestlers, they die innocent because they were not wrestlers. Like I say, he was a great athlete. Um, I'm sure he could look after himself in a fight, but you couldn't accuse him of being a wrestler. I mean, a lot of people have argued with me. I mean, they've said like, oh, this guy, that guy. I mean, Hulk Hogan and Jimmy Valiant and Austin Idol. People like that were great wrestlers. They were only appeared to be great wrestlers because the thing is they put asses on seats. They were entertaining. They were very good entertainers, and a lot of them could talk a good fight. But as far as having a good fight is concerned, they'd never beaten that one in their lives. I don't think a lot of these people. And like I say, if they were hung for being wrestlers, they died innocent. Those guys, they didn't have a clue.
Dusty Rhodes would probably fall into that category, and you had some great matches with Dusty over the years, but I'm surprised he never brought you into WCW. Did he ever talk about bringing you into one of the bigger companies when he was booking?
I was already in. I was already in a bigger company when Dusty Rhodes. Dory Funk Jr. was the booker for the WCW or the NWA as they were when I worked for him. And he's the guy that actually brought me in. And I was doing great. But anyway, he was replaced by Dusty Rhodes, and I'd already upset Dusty Rhodes in Florida. I'd already upset him, and like he wanted revenge and all the rest of it. So the first thing he did when he came in as a booker in the NWA was I've been having a feud with Jimmy Valiant, but Paul Jones and like the people he was managing jumped in the ring one night to attack Jimmy Valiant, and I kind of got in the way, and I sort of sided with Jimmy Valiant, and we knocked the hell out of him and threw him out of the ring and all that. We had a feud going with them for a while, and instead of being my my adversary, we sort of quit doing that sort of deal and everything like that. Jimmy Valiant and I teamed up, and we were wrestling against like anybody, the Assassins and Kamala and all those people. And we were doing great. I mean, all of a sudden we were the new kids on the block. We were the hottest deal that the NWA had. Anyway, Dusty Rhodes came in as a booker to replace Dory Funk Jr. And he still had a grudge against me. But anyway, like I say, we were the hottest thing. So he turned round and teamed up with Jimmy Valiant and myself. So if there was any three-a-side tag matches and stuff like that. Anyway, he actually got over in the NWA the fact he was associated with Jimmy Valiant and myself. Then as soon as he was actually over, he fired both Jimmy Valiant and myself. And that's the way he did it, you know. I mean, obviously, Dusty Rhodes was good at a booker, you know, knowing who to put on with whom and all that kind of stuff, because that's what he didn't have a clue as far as fighting or wrestling is concerned. But the thing is, like I say, he could talk and he did all that silly jazzy sort of stuff and all the rest of it. And if he was a booker, then he could do whatever he wanted to do, and he could beat whoever he wanted to beat.
And last question for today. I was wondering if you could give us some of your memories of working for Stampede Wrestling here in Canada. I've heard you say in the past the pay wasn't the greatest, but how was your experience overall working for the Hearts?
Um, the journeys were too long. Um, didn't like the Hearts very much actually. I guess I like Bruce the best. No, Bruce, I got on very well with Brett. In actual fact, it was me that sort of arranged for Brett to actually work in Germany.
Hmm, interesting.
The Kaiser, the German promoter, he actually came over to Canada to do some talent scouting, sort of bring some people back to the German tournaments, and I was the only one that he actually wanted. And he thought I was an American for whatever reason. But anyway, he wanted me to come, and I made one of the conditions that he made one of the conditions of me going out there. I made one of the conditions. If you take me, you're going to take Brett. He wasn't interested in that. He wasn't interested in any of them. And Brett said to me, he said, "Do you think you could bring Neidhart out as well?" I said, "As a favor to you, yeah." So it was me that actually got Neidhart and Brett out there. Then Keith Hart came to me and he said, "Oh," he said, "You got Brett and Neidhart out there." He said, "Do you think you'll take?" He said, "Do you think you can get me out there?" I said, "I could." He said, "Will you?" I said, "No." And he said, "Why not?" I said, "I don't like you." But anyway, he was determined to do it. He was determined to actually go out there. And he actually paid himself and went to the tournaments and he came there every night. And the booker out there, this guy, he said, isn't much bigger than you. He said, he said, he's hanging about and whatever. He said, like he's Bret Hart's brother. He said, do you want to work with him? I said, if you use him, I said, I'm going. And I tell you what, I was one of the biggest draws they had. I had a gold cup from them actually. It's the best attraction of the Hanover tournament. And I said, if you use him at all, I said, I'm not wrestling with him. I said, but if you use him at all, I said, I'm back. I'm gone. I'm history. And they wanted me to sign a contract to go back there for the next year. And that was one of the stipulations. I said, I'll sign the contract and I'll come back next year. But you don't use him. I don't like the guy. And I never made, if I like somebody, okay, I like them. I let them know I like them. If I don't like them, I like to let them know too. So there's no sort of question about it or anything like that. Then it's up to them to keep out of my way if they want to stay safe.
Now you've shown your musical album, you've shown your books throughout this interview. Do you want to let the fans know where they could pick up some of this merchandise?
Best way to do it really is to contact me on Facebook. I've got this as well. These
Oh,
are
you have a doll now.
these are brand new, and they're the most realistic ones you can get. I mean, that really looks like me. This isn't one of those grotesque things on the back. I mean, people like to have their merchandise, these things that are signed. I've got a place to sign it right on the back there. That's a figure. That's what they actually look like. And hey, thank you very much for helping me advertise that stuff. The record, I showed you the record earlier. It's also on a cassette. It's also on a DVD. And this is my second album, Naughty But It's Nice.
And you should put some of your songs on iTunes, in my opinion, because there's definitely a few iTunes songs I would download if you put some of your music on iTunes. I don't know if you've ever considered that.
Um, I'm sure that my stuff probably is. I don't know anything about iTunes, but
Oh, okay.
I'm sure my music man Don would have probably would have put it on now because he's kind of into all that kind of stuff, you know.
All right. Well, thanks a lot for joining us, and we'll probably have you back on in the future because we just scratched the surface today. And you're a very impressive role model for someone like me to look up to, still in top shape at 78 years old.
Yeah, well, I spend 5 days a week in the gym, and when I'm not in the gym, weather permitting, I'm walking in the hills and everything like that. The green grass of home and the lovely Welsh mountains, absolutely beautiful. And you know me, role model yourself, Devon. So you know, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to meet you, like a soul brother in the business.